Hello and welcome to Emerald Exchange Orchestrated Intelligence Decoded. I'm Richelle Carey. Keeping financial services flowing for billions of people in hundreds of countries across every kind of financial institution is one of the great technological challenges of our time. And for billions of people who interact with their bank every day, the experience of that challenge is simple. Does my bank actually know me, and does it make my financial life easier or harder? Well, FIS is one of the world's leading financial technology companies, and its Digital One platform is at the center of how financial institutions are answering that question, bringing together mobile banking, account origination, open banking, and customer engagement in a single connected ecosystem. Joining me now are SVP and Head of Ecosystem Banking and Commerce at FIS, Hashim Toussaint, and Head of Retail Banking for Digital One, Shane McWilliams. And welcome to both of you.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. So I've got a question for both of you. All right. Before joining FIS, you were building a digital banking platform from different sides of the table, right? One from inside a major financial institution, one from a leading digital banking technology provider. What did those experiences teach you about what financial institutions actually need that you could not have known from the outside? Hashim, I want you to go first.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. So coming from two top 10 banks and really experiencing the level of scale, resiliency, the attention to fraud prevention really informs what I do today, right? Every product we deliver has to be wrapped around those sort of three pillars. And that's the environment all of our banks play in. And it's about how do you deliver great product, but also scale it, secure it, and ensure that it's up and running 24/7.
Shay?
I actually came from a fintech startup. And so I've been working with regional banks and community banks, credit unions for quite a long time now. I think one of the most important things in what we do is making sure that we're helping those banks sort of stay at the edge of the curve of new technology. But then also a big part of what I have to do and what we think about here at FIS is making sure that we're doing it at a pace that those banks can consume it and make sure that they're getting value for their customers. So
Wonderful. Shane, digital banking in the last decade has changed almost beyond recognition, right? But customers say, some of them, that their bank's apps don't feel as intuitive or personalized as their favorite non-financial app. How do you close that gap, the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, look, I think we are going through a pretty interesting time where technology is no longer the sort of the place where you see challenges, right? Technology is really unlocking a lot of possibilities. I personally agree with customers. I think we can push the boundaries in terms of personalization and meeting that customer truly in the moment that matter, the moments that matter to them, within the right context, with the right information, with the right products is going to be huge. And so when we talk about data, when we talk about knowing the customer, when we talk about connected systems, those are the components you need to really deliver an elevated experience. And I do agree, customers need that and require that.
And the data says so much about the customer. You've got all the information right there.
That's right.
So Shane, Digital One brings together mobile banking, customer engagement, account origination, and open banking, one single ecosystem. Why does integration matter as much as those individual capabilities? Why does it all need to work together?
yeah, great question. I think the industry has come a long way, even in just the past couple of years. And I think at this point, just about anybody can kind of bring in an external capability into their digital experience, but they end up doing it in a very sort of superficial way. And so I think what is really important in today's world is creating those sort of horizontal integrations in between those capabilities to make sure that they work together really well within your ecosystem. I think that's one of our greatest strengths is being the people that can bring things together better than anybody else. And I think that really provides that true ecosystem value for our customers.
Hashim, let's talk about opening the ecosystem, basically, right? For an institution that has managed its own data for decades, what does opening the ecosystem require beyond just technology? Is it a mindset shift as well?
It is all of the above. But I would start with, I think in order to open up the ecosystem, you first have to have your own house in order, right? If you don't have the right integrations in place, if you don't have the right protections, if you don't have the right certification programs in place to enable others to connect, it's really hard to open up, right? In many ways, if you do without having those things in line, you actually create a lot more confusion for the parties trying to connect, but also the end customers who need to, use the product. So it is really important to get your own house sort of in order, and connectivity, clean data, security. I think those are all things that are non-negotiables if you want to be a leading ecosystem player.
Let's talk more about open banking, right? It is moving at very different speeds in very different places around the world. The US regulatory picture still very unsettled, to say the least. How do you build a global digital banking ecosystem when the rules are different in so many places and, as I said, are unsettled?
That's right. Yeah. So still waiting to see how the rules shape up. However, the regulatory environment is one component of the open banking ecosystem. What's really driving the market is the end customer, right? And that's a dynamic that we're focused on. How do we give end users and customers the right level of access and control while still, giving them the optionality, right? And so for us, yes, regulatory is a component of that, but we're really focused on the market drivers, which are being pushed forward by the consumers. And that's what we're focused on. And really, it's, for us, again, we are creating products with the right level of resiliency and fraud prevention. So as the rules change, we feel very well positioned to align to those changes. So the other dynamic here is that flexibility in the technology is also really important.
Shane, there's a live tension in open banking between banks and fintech, right? Banks are being asked to open their infrastructure to competitors, right? Who may be better at the customer service experience. How do you make the case to a bank that open banking actually serves their interests?
Great one. It's actually a really easy but kind of an interesting conversation in the sense that I kind of start by telling them to take a little bit of a deep breath, and then I let them know, hey, your customers are already sharing their data, right? And they think these banks in many cases don't realize that is happening. Now, the catch is that a lot of times in these cases, it's happening via methods that maybe aren't the best, right? It might be screen scraping or other things where it may not be the safest way to do it. And the bank can't kind of get the payback for having that data moving around. And so what I suggest to those banks is, find a trusted technology partner, probably somebody like us, right? And really help talk through the balance. And that's really what it is for these institutions, is finding the balance for those end users between the convenience, right, that comes with sharing your financial data, but also doing it in a way that is safe. And I think if you can do that and get that set up correctly, then what happens for the bank is then they get the benefit of seeing the activity that their customers are doing outside, right, of the bank and the existing relationship with them, and then they can look to expand it with those individual customers.
You said, take a deep breath, calm down, trust. I've been hearing this a lot here at Emerald Exchange. A lot of that's how you manage relationships. I'm curious just how vital is that in how you manage things with your partners, because there's so many new evolving things. Calm, deep breath, trust. Did I get those three right?
That's right. It's a critical part of our business, right? I mean, we are working with institutions that just aren't as close to some of the latest technologies that we are. That's the role that we provide, for our customers here. And so, a big part of that is just providing them the latest and greatest, but making sure that we know our customers really well. We know how they want to consume the technology, and we know how they want to bring it out to their customers to get the best value for them as a bank and for the end customer as well.
Wonderful. Hashim, you're on the front lines of how open data infrastructure benefits the end customer. We talked about that a little bit. How do you help banking clients understand and communicate what they truly own and the controls that they have over their data?
Yeah, I think with open banking, from the consumer perspective, there still is a bit of sort of misunderstanding in terms of what the customer has a right to, how they can actually provide more or give themselves more control. And so I think the role that sort of our banks can play is to really educate the customer in terms of what they can and can't do, right? Do you truly know as a customer when you give access to a third party to access your bank account? What does that mean, right? When you, remove access, what does that mean? So I do think there's a pretty important role there. So I think education is the first thing, and our banks and our customers really have a real big role to play in terms of that message.
I have a question for both of you. The future of banking is often described as intelligent automation meeting human insight, right? And as AI handles more of the routine, where does the human element remain not just relevant, but really, really irreplaceable? Shane, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think in particular, I think the folks that are going to be the most successful out there in the market, whether it's a provider or a bank or somebody that's using the technology, I think it's finding that moment in the experience, especially with AI, where that end user is starting to feel that point of frustration. And then, that's when you bring in the human. And I just think, as a business entity right now, right, I think you're not going to be able to compete without integrating some level of AI into your operations. But I think, again, the ones that are going to be the most successful are going to be the ones that find that time when it is the right moment to insert the human. And I think that's the way to do it.
So I could not agree more with Shane. I think the human element will become premium, right? As you think about these technologies rapidly advancing, I think about my own personal experience where I every time I call a support center, I'm greeted with an agent first. And to Shane's point, there's a level of frustration, I think, that will build up over time, especially when you think about the moment the customer is really frustrated, they're still dealing with the technology. And so those who can inject in the right moments when to apply the human touch, I think will be the ones who are successful. So I do agree. I do think it will become a premium experience when you inject the human touch to the flows and to the user experiences.
Like, if you can get that sweet spot, because there are some customers that only want the AI, that's all they need. There's others that are like, okay, I'm done with that. I need a person. And when you master that, yeah, you're definitely going to win at that for sure. All right, Hashim, for you, let's talk about open access, right? It already integrates Plaid, MX, and Akoya, and AI agents are beginning to act on behalf of customers, initiating transactions, managing financial relationships, all autonomously, right? I know that might keep some executives up at night, but that is what's happening, right? What does that mean for where a bank's core relationship with its customer actually sits?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I am of the mindset that it sits with the banks, because when things go wrong, the first place you're called is your bank, right? And yes, there might be a fintech who sat in front of the experience when the customer initiated it, but when things go bump in the night, the bank is the first place to get the call. So if that's the dynamic, then ultimately they are in charge of the relationship. Now, again, educating the customer in terms of what does it mean to go through a fintech to get to their accounts is one part of it. But helping the customer in real life examples when things don't go well, I think is also an important role banks have to play. So I'm of the mindset if you're going to receive the call first when things go wrong, you ultimately are responsible.
And this is I've heard you both say this. A lot of what you're talking about is education. How important is that in your relationship with your partners as well, to explain things to them, to learn things at the same time as them, to lead them in learning about all of this new stuff?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And it's a journey. And I think it first starts with, one of the things we're focused on is a very structured partnership and vendor program where we establish things like integration patterns. We're establishing things like support models, right? So that when we do have challenges, we can help the customer, but also their end users navigate those challenges.
Absolutely. Okay. So for a bank that wants to modernize, right, its digital banking experience, but they feel completely overwhelmed because the change, like they learn this one thing and then it changes. They learn this other thing, then it changes. A question for both of you. I'll put this to you first, Shane. Where should they actually start? How would you coach them to start?
How would I coach them to start? Well, I think the biggest thing right now is just you have to remain flexible, right? It's especially now with the pace of change, it is faster than it has ever been before. If you ask somebody to predict what things are going to be like in 12 months, I would tell you that they are not telling you the truth. right? And so I think the key is flexibility. From my perspective, a big part of that is really on the commercial side of things, right? If you think about us as a large technology provider, anybody like us in the market, right? We've got to be really smart from a flexibility side around, who are we partnering with, making sure that they are best in class in the market, right? Making sure that we're very careful about where we are acquisitive in the market, right? Because each one of those things is a different level of commitment, whether it's financially or an implied promise to our customers, right? And things like that. And so really the key is being as flexible as possible, staying as flexible as possible so that we can keep bringing things forward for our customers. And that allows the banks and our customers to consume it in a way that they're ready to do when they can. But again, we've got to stay nimble. That's the most critical thing for us.
I will build on the flexibility theme. But I will tackle it from a technology side, right? So the way we think about it is we are enabling domains within our technology stack, right? These domains are essentially can be autonomous. They stand on their own and they create ultimate flexibility when you think about sort of these legacy systems and you think about the volume of new partners integrating into our system. And so those sort of capabilities, you can plug and play many different providers, to Shane's point, many different partners. And then you also connected a vast array of backend systems. And so as the technology shifts, as customer demands shift, you can really morph, right? And really cater to those needs in a very nimble way. So I agree. I double down with what Shane said. Flexibility from a tech stack all the way through sort of commercial items are going to be key in this sort of new world that is evolving very quickly every single day.
And I think you also said deep breath. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We've been talking with Hashim Toussaint and Shane McWilliams to explore more of the forces reshaping financial services and how the world's leading institutions are responding. Join me for more episodes of Emerald Exchange.